My name is Emily Carter. I thought I knew what family meant, until the night my world collapsed. It began with a phone call. A deep, cold voice on the other end. Ms. Carter, your payments are overdue. Payments? I didn't owe anyone anything. I was 24, working 2 jobs in Boston, barely paying rent. But within days, letters poured in. Credit card bills I had never used. Bank loans I had never signed. Debt collectors calling me by name, as if I had gambled away millions. Confused, I rushed to confront my father, Richard Carter. But his phone was switched off. His office? Empty. His apartment? Vacant. It was like he had vanished overnight, leaving only one thing behind. My name. Every single loan, every unpaid debt, signed under my identity. He had put it all on me, his daughter. The humiliation came fast. At work, whispers spread. She's broke. Her credit is ruined. Friends drifted away. My landlord threatened eviction. I stood there, betrayed and abandoned, drowning in debts I never made. But I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I walked away from the chaos, with a silence that held a dangerous promise. Because the story wasn't ending here. It was only beginning. They thought I was finished. But what no one knew was that Richard Carter's betrayal had forced me to build a life he could never control. For years, while my father gambled with fake partnerships and shady deals, I was quietly working on something else. At night, after long shifts at a diner, I studied finance and digital markets. While my father burned money, I invested in silence. Startups, real estate shares, early crypto projects, anything I could learn and grow. I never bragged, never posted, never told a soul. By the time his empire crumbled, mine had already begun to rise, a hidden portfolio of companies registered under my name, this time by choice. A quiet office space in New York City with a staff that thought I was just a low-profile CEO. No one connected Emily Carter, drowning in debts, with E. Carter Holdings, a company quietly moving millions in investments. So while collectors knocked on my apartment door, my lawyers and accountants met me in glass-walled boardrooms, discussing expansion. The world saw a girl ruined by her father's debts. But behind the curtain, I was already a woman building an empire he could never steal from me. Boston was where I carried my father's debts. New York was where I buried them. Every morning, I walked into a high-rise office on Fifth Avenue, glass walls reflecting the city skyline. On the door was a discreet plaque, E. Carter Holdings. To the outside world, it was just another investment firm. To me, it was proof that silence and patience could build what noise and recklessness destroyed. Inside, my team worked diligently. Analysts, lawyers, consultants. They didn't know the full story. They only knew me as a sharp, decisive leader who spoke less and achieved more. My apartment overlooked Central Park, a quiet sanctuary, far from debt collectors' threats and the humiliation of whispered gossip. No one there knew about Richard Carter or the storm he left behind. Here, I wasn't the daughter abandoned with debts. I was Emily, the strategist, the survivor, the builder. And I lived by one rule carved from betrayal. Silence builds empires, noise builds debts. My father's disappearance had been my curse, but also my catalyst, because while he vanished into shadows, I discovered my light, and that light was only getting brighter. Secrets don't stay hidden forever. And in America, curiosity spreads faster than truth. It started small, at a family gathering in Chicago. A distant aunt whispered, "Did you see Emily's new apartment? How does she afford that with all that debt?" At a cafe in Boston, an old coworker spotted me stepping out of a black sedan with tinted windows. He texted a friend, "Emily Carter? Thought she was broke." Online, quiet rumors began to float. LinkedIn updates about E. Carter Holdings, Blurry photos from conferences where I spoke under dim lights, newspaper snippets about new investments. No one could connect the dots. But whispers turned into questions. Questions turned into doubt. They remembered the girl crushed by her father's betrayal. But now, she looked untouchable. I stayed silent. I didn't post, didn't explain, didn't defend. Because silence was my armor, and nothing unsettles people more than a secret they can't solve. The first whisper always finds a mouth to speak through, and the first knock on my new life came from someone I once trusted. It was a Sunday morning in Manhattan when my phone lit up. Daniel Miller, my cousin from Boston. We hadn't spoken in years. I hesitated, then answered. "Emily," he began, his tone dipped in false warmth. "I was just in New York. Thought maybe we could grab coffee." We met at a quiet cafe near Bryant Park. Daniel leaned forward, smiling too much, his eyes restless. "You look different. Doing well, huh? Must be hard, though, with all those debts your dad left on you." He chuckled nervously. "People are saying crazy things, that you're running some big company. Is that true?" I sipped my coffee slowly, letting silence stretch. "People say a lot of things, Daniel," I replied. "But you shouldn't believe everything you hear." His smile faltered. Curiosity shifted into envy, though he tried to hide it. "Well, if you ever need family support, you know we're here." I met his gaze, calm and unblinking. "Family support?" I whispered. "Where was that when the world thought I was drowning?" Daniel didn't answer. He shifted uncomfortably, then forced a laugh, pretending it was just casual talk. But I saw it, the hunger in his eyes, and I knew, if Daniel had noticed, others would come soon enough. It didn't take long. When the whispers grew louder, the storm finally found my door. One evening, my office assistant buzzed in. "Ms. Carter, there's someone here to see you." I stepped into the lobby and froze. There he was, Richard Carter, my father, standing with two men in cheap suits, creditors who had chased me for months. His face was thinner, worn, but his smile was the same old performance. "Emily," he said, arms spread as if nothing had happened. "Look at you. You've done well." My staff lingered nearby, confused, whispering. I led them into a private conference room. The creditors laid folders on the table, contracts, debts, all under my name. "Your father told us you'd help," one of them sneered. I looked at Richard. His eyes didn't hold shame, only expectation. "You're my daughter," he said smoothly. "Family takes care of family." I felt every scar he'd carved into me with his betrayal, but I refused to bleed for him again. Calmly, I pushed the folders back across the table. "These signatures are yours, not mine. You disappeared. You abandoned me. Now you want me to clean your mess?" Richard's smile cracked. "Emily, please. If you don't help me, they'll destroy me." I rose to my feet, steady and unshaken. "You already destroyed yourself, Dad. Don't drag me down with you." And with that, I walked out, closing the glass door behind me. The sound of it echoed like a verdict. For the first time, Richard Carter realized his daughter was no longer the victim. When you refuse to carry someone else's burden, they try to make it heavier until you break. After that meeting, the storm came harder. My voicemail filled with messages. Richard's voice, sometimes pleading, sometimes angry. "Emily, I'm your father. You can't just turn your back on me." Other times, "You think you're better than me now? You're nothing without me." Letters arrived, creditors demanding payments, threatening legal action. Some even showed up at my office lobby, shouting my name, trying to humiliate me. And then came the family guilt trips, calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. "He's still your father, Emily. Family means forgiveness. Blood is thicker than money. But where were they when my rent was due and collectors pounded on my door? Where were they when whispers of shame followed me everywhere? I listened to the messages, I read the letters, and then I set them all aside, because silence wasn't weakness, it was my shield. And the more they tried to break me, the stronger my silence became. When silence didn't break me, they decided to break into my world. It was a gala night in New York, an investment summit at the Plaza Hotel. I stood under golden chandeliers speaking with partners about our next expansion. Cameras flashed, the room buzzed with polished ambition. And then, the air shifted. I saw him, Richard Carter, pushing through the crowd, flanked by creditors like vultures circling their prey. Gasps rippled, whispers followed. Isn't that her father? The man who disappeared? He stepped right onto the stage, grabbing a microphone. His voice boomed, "This is my daughter, Emily Carter. She owes everything she has to me." The room froze. Investors, journalists, rivals, all staring. I walked forward, heels clicking against marble, every step echoing louder than his words. I took the microphone from his hand, my voice calm but cutting through the silence. "You're right, Richard. I do owe you something. Not success, not wealth, but a lesson." I turned to the crowd. My father put every one of his debts in my name, then disappeared. He thought he buried me. Instead, he built me. Gasps, murmurs, flashes of cameras. Richard's face twisted, panic creeping in. "Emily, stop this. You'll ruin me," he hissed. I leaned closer, my words sharp as glass. "You ruined yourself the day you chose betrayal over blood." The creditors tried to press forward, but security blocked them. Investors stepped back, shaking their heads, disgusted at the spectacle. And as Richard stumbled in front of everyone, I stood taller than ever. That night, under the chandeliers, the world finally saw the truth. I was no longer the abandoned daughter. I was the storm. Revenge doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it signs a document. After the gala, the story spread like wildfire. Newspapers headlined, "Daughter exposes father at investment summit." Investors pulled away from Richard overnight. His name became poison, but I wasn't finished. For months, I had prepared quietly. My lawyers filed motions, tracing every fraudulent signature, every illegal loan Richard had placed in my name. Piece by piece, we built a case strong enough to shatter what little he had left. Then came the final strike, at a downtown courthouse. Richard sat across from me, sweat clinging to his collar. His creditors, once circling him, now turned their rage directly at him. The judge's gavel hit the desk. "All debts filed under Emily Carter's name are hereby transferred back to Richard Carter. Fraud proven. Case closed." Gasps echoed. Richard slumped, destroyed. The same creditors who once terrorized me now rushed toward him like wolves. I gathered my papers calmly, stood, and walked out. Not a word, not a glance back. Because silence had always been my weapon. And today, it was my victory. Some storms you survive, others, you become. Weeks later, I stood on the balcony of my apartment overlooking Central Park. The city pulsed beneath me, lights flickering, horns echoing, life moving forward. For years, Richard Carter's betrayal was a chain around my neck. He tried to bury me under debts, abandon me in shame, erase me with silence. But I learned something in the darkness he left behind. Your name is not defined by the debts others place on it. It's defined by what you build in its shadow. Today, my name means strength. It means resilience. It means empire. I closed my eyes, breathed in the city air, and let the peace settle inside me. My dad put my name on his business debts, then disappeared. But I made that same name untouchable, and no debt in this world could ever take that away.